Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to The Truth. I'm your host, the one you love the most, Niall Hassan, back with a brand new episode here on The Truth. Back once again with my brother Lucas. Lucas, how are you doing here today?
Good, ready to talk some more baseball. Twins won their spring training again. Iowa women's team won today, so it's good.
Yeah, I've just finished watching the Iowa men's game from yesterday, so had no idea what happened. I guess I could have assumed that they weren't going to win. I felt a little bit optimistic when it was like they came back a little bit. It was like 20-20. Then I hardly was paying attention to the second half because I just want to gauge my eyes out every time I watch that. But at least Iowa women's won. And then, as you said, the Twins, who cares, right? It's spring training. Nobody cares. But yeah, so today we're going to continue our series. We are officially halfway through. Yes, we are officially halfway through. Had to think about that for a sec. Our sleeper series here for fantasy baseball upcoming. So we've gone over starting pitching, relief pitching, catchers, and first baseman. Today we're going to go over second baseman. So again, with these positions, I'm going to either say this at the beginning of every show or just one time for the rest of the shows. This is second baseman eligibility. This is also not one of those things that it's strictly second baseman. Like maybe it's somebody that's more of a third baseman than second baseman, although that'd be a weird pairing. But they still have that eligibility. So I just wanted to put that out there for those that are wondering. But anyways, we each have three sleepers that we're going to discuss. And so without further ado, why don't you go ahead and give me your first sleeper?
First guy for me is a little bit of a long shot in the sense that he's not really going to make an impact this year, or at least I don't think so. It's Kristian Campbell of the Red Sox. I think he's a top 3 prospect in the game. And at least how our league worked, or I did this with Adley Rutschman in like the 20th round. I drafted him and put him on an NA, so he's kind of there until he gets called up. I think he's not far away. He had a really good year last year. 330 average, 20 home runs, 77 RBIs, 24 stolen bases, and 1,000 OPS. Again, that's the reason he's a top 3 prospect in the game. And he's an on-roster invite, so he's going to hopefully have a good spring and hopefully work himself into the mix in second base. Again, has career numbers that are similar to last year, mostly because he's only been in the minor leagues for a year and a half, but still, it's nice to see he's continuing this production. And I mean, ADP-wise, you can get him at second base, shortstop, and some leagues even have him for center field, so that's some really good flexibility there. All those positions, he's around number 30, so he's not, again, probably going to be a starting second baseman, but someone who I would take a flyer on and look at the end of my draft.
So my first guy is primarily a first baseman now, but I didn't want to include him in my first baseman show just because I felt like there were so many great first basemen. And this guy just doesn't necessarily ring the bell as far as what a typical first baseman looks like. One of the reasons why is because his name is Luis Arraez. And what I mean by he's a first baseman that doesn't look like he's a first baseman, it's because he has, 4 home runs a year, right? He's not a guy that's going to necessarily lift the ball, at least as of late. I mean, I know in his first year with Miami, his best season, he had 10 home runs, which was great for fantasy managers because he had the 69 RBIs, of course, genius right there. And then a 354 average, which is just absolutely insane in 574 at bats. Obviously, you know him as much as I know him as far as him being a twin. It kind of sucked to see him go, but I felt like overall it was a good deal for both sides, right? The Marlins were able to get Luis Arraez and we were able to get Pablo Lopez. So for the moment, for both sides, it looked like it was actually a good deal. Last year, he played in San Diego, only appeared in 117 games, had 4 home runs to 40 RBIs, and his batting average was 318. He had 500 at bats, though. So this is one of those guys that's consistently going to get at bats, and he's going to hopefully consistently, year in and year out, hit for over 300. That's a big part of him, right? When you're talking about roto leagues, you need guys that are able to have good average, and Luis Arraez does do that. He's also going to bring in an occasional pop. I know he didn't show it last year or in the first half of the season when he was with Miami. He didn't have a single home run in the 33 games, but 117 there for San Diego plus the 33, 140 some games last year. Relatively healthy, stayed healthy, and I think that's going to continue. On top of that, since he is first baseman, like primarily, but he has second base eligibility, this is a guy that could slide into a second base spot very nicely, especially if you're focusing on power for roto leagues at the first baseman spot. You can get a guy like Luis Arraez who, is going to have some average, and he also showed his ability to steal bags last year, doubled his career high in stolen bases at 9. So again, not a guy that's going to blow it off the page. He's shown that he can get 10 home runs, but honestly, if you get him for a second baseman eligibility and he gets a maximum of 10 home runs and he's going to bat over 300, sometimes even 330, I'm definitely taking that as much as I can get. What about your second guy?
Second guy for me is a little bit of a surprise, is Otto Lopez in Miami. sure many people haven't heard of him only because last year was his first full season. And you look at his numbers overall, they aren't great in terms of power numbers and where you'd like to see those. He had 403 at bats, 109 hits is nice, 23 doubles, only 6 home runs, 39 RBIs, 25 walks to 75 strikeouts, and 20 stolen bases. To me, I just look at the upside for him. He had a really good end of the season. Hit 350 with 400 on base percentage in his last 30 games. So those are numbers that I'm excited about. I think he could be a guy who, I mean, in fantasy, you're not counting doubles, but I could see him be a 40 double, 25 stolen base guy. And he's hitting 270, getting on base 32% of the time. Again, the OPS is nothing to write home about, only 690, 377 slug. So again, you're not hitting or you're not getting a guy who's going to, you know, hit you a lot of home runs. But he has that second base and shortstop eligibility. And he's getting drafted even lower than Kristian Campbell, who isn't even in the league yet. And in Miami, I know you're not going to have a lot of RBI opportunities, but I think he's going to be a bat to watch and kind of someone I'm just interested in seeing how he plays in even spring training just to see what I can look at. But a guy to pick up maybe end of draft or on waivers when you need a second baseman or shortstop.
So my guy, I'm going to go with the rookie last year, Colt Keith, for Detroit. Obviously, a pretty good season, I'd say, as a rookie. I mean, obviously being the second baseman, these stats are pretty solid for any second baseman. I mean, obviously, you'd like to see a little bit more numbers, but especially being a rookie, 13 home runs, 61 RBIs, had 7 stolen bags, and batted 260. So all in all, pretty solid there. 110 strikeouts in 148 games, so striking out roughly one every 5 times. I feel like he can live with that, especially for a guy that was young there, and he's only going to continue to see more pitches and be successful in the league. I also think too, like the Tigers showed obviously that they are somewhat contenders or pretenders. I think there's some debate about that. They have a really good pitching staff. They have a lot of young talent. I think Colt Keith could be a really contributing piece to that, lineup. He's not going to be, on a team full of Dodgers or Yankees players where there's a tons of bats. There's a lot of young talent that could produce some runs, and this is a Detroit Tigers team that kind of came on a run last year, and I think they could kind of do the same going into this year. Now, I think they're going to carry the momentum, so it's never a for sure guarantee, and it could also be kind of a pretending season. But Colt Keith's the guy I'm super excited to see what he's going to do in year two. I wasn't going to say that I necessarily wasn't the biggest Colt Keith fan as a rookie. I just didn't know if he'd really establish himself and put up some really good rookie numbers, and he's currently the 23rd best second baseman. There's some guys ahead of him that I wouldn't even consider drafting anywhere near Colt Keith. So if I'm able to get a guy like Colt Keith, yes, you might see a little bit of a downfall just because a lot of guys have, sophomore slumps, but I think what we've seen in year one and what this Tigers team can do moving forward, I think Colt Keith's easily a guy that could, continue to move up the ranks, especially being the 23rd best second baseman right now. He's a guy that could finish inside the top 20 or top 15 easily, and there's not much that needs to be done from his end to really do that. So I'm super excited about him. I think he's getting slept on a little bit because people are a little worried about the sophomore slump, but I think it definitely is a possibility, but that's risk with every fantasy player going into this year. What about your final guy?
Yeah, my final guy is Jackson Holliday, of course, Baltimore Orioles. I think it's hard to call him a sleeper as the number one overall pick. What was that, 3 years ago? But people are really down on him. I mean, I think we all remember his terrible start. He got like one hit in his first time up. Was good the second time around, but still. Last season, 190 at bats, hit 190, 5 home runs, 23 RBIs, 4 stolen bases. So, of course, those numbers I think are what scared people off. But people have to remember, like, he was raking in the minors, 218 career games, 245 hits, 60 doubles, 23 home runs, 122 RBIs. So he's not going to be a home run hitting guy, but he's going to get on base. And something that pops out to me is he has 201 career walks and 207 career strikeouts. So he almost has more walks than strikeouts, 36 career stolen bases. He's a career 300 hitter in the minors. 928 OPS. Again, that OPS is going to carry his on base, I should say. He's a 440 on base percentage in the minors, so he's going to get on base. And I think that if he's given like a full opportunity, I think people are down on Baltimore in general just because they haven't won a playoff game and they're doing all this, but they're not winning. They lose Anthony Santander. So I think someone who's kind of sneaky is Jackson Holliday, and a lot of ADPs have him around 15, which I think is fair considering how he played. But just seeing the talent he has and what he's capable of doing, I would definitely look at him to draft in the middle or end of the draft.
So for me, I'm going to go with my final guy as a guy that has tons of eligibility everywhere, it seems like, and it's going to be Jake Cronenworth. Now, I know that he's quote unquote listed as a first baseman, but, Luis Arraez is also listed as first baseman. And last time I checked, there can't be two first basemen playing the position at once. So one of them's eventually going to shift over, whether that's to second base, shortstop, or even third base. So looking at a guy like Jake Cronenworth, I think this is definitely a guy, again, a similar situation where he's one of those guys that has numbers that were really good for second baseman in general. Last season was a step up from 2023, 17 home runs, which almost doubled his home runs from the previous year, 83 RBIs, which did basically double from 48 last season. And he also jumped his batting average to 12 from 229 to 241, so a 12% increase there. All in all, his numbers are trending upward. Obviously, he's entering his sixth season now in San Diego. He is 31 years old, so tiny bit of a late bloomer. Not necessarily a late bloomer, but got to the major leagues not as fast as a guy like Jackson Holiday. Oh wait, yes, not as fast as I was trying to say that backwards. But anyways, I think Jake Cronenworth in the San Diego lineup, like this is a really good San Diego lineup. I love watching the San Diego lineup. Like I'm not saying that I'm specifically drafting guys to because they're on San Diego, but I think there's so much potential there, so much opportunity for runs producing. And I think this is a guy that, look, I mean, his eligibility helps a lot. He's a guy like Willie Castro who's in the lineup every game because he can play 17 different positions. He played in 155 games last year for them, which is huge. And every time you're looking for a guy that's able to get you on the field, Jake Cronenworth is that guy. And because we saw a step up from him, I'm super excited. And because of the fact that he's listed as the 27th best second baseman, which is 5 spots below Colt Keith. And some of the other guys that are ahead of him are question marks as well. So a guy that, is going to play everywhere and get you some good numbers is a guy that I'm super excited about, and that is Jake Cronenworth on the Padres. Thank you guys for listening to another episode here on The Truth. If you guys did enjoy it, make sure you follow The Truth on Twitter, TheTruthAs1, to stay up to date with the latest information regarding The Truth, including podcast dates, podcast uploads, and other important information you don't want to miss. Make sure you guys also follow The Truth on Instagram and TikTok at the.tt.truth. Are you looking to find a drink that offers peak hydration, raises your energy levels, speeds up your recovery, and keeps your mind sharp through focus and memory? Look no further than Acid Rainwater. I'm excited to partner with Bloodline Sports AZ and Acid Rainwater, which focuses on peak hydration and productivity, while also maintaining an ecosystem-friendly product. Use code HESSON15, that's HESSON15, for 15% off every purchase. As always, I'm your host, someone you love the most, Niall Hesson, joined once again by my brother Lucas. Take care and good night.